What if I told you that most startups don't fail because of bad ideas? They fail because entrepreneurs ask the wrong questions. In this powerful talk from John Mullins at TED, you'll discover 6 game-changing strategies that can completely transform the way you think about business. These aren't just theories. They're real-world principles used by successful entrepreneurs to turn small ideas into massive success stories. If you're serious about building a profitable business and avoiding costly mistakes, this video might change your entire entrepreneurial journey. Let's dive in.
In 1995, Linda Weinman, a graphic design instructor and a budding businesswoman, made the decision to purchase the website lynda.com. She took this action because she required a sandbox in which to experiment with the new visual design tools, the digital tools that were then being developed, and Illustrator, Photoshop, and many others. She also required a location to store her students' assignments so that everyone could see it. After she created the website, the business started to expand and she shifted all of her instruction online in 2002 after realizing it could be much, much more. Later, the company was acquired by LinkedIn, who changed its name to LinkedIn Learning. It sold for $1.5 billion. Linda is the embodiment of what I refer to as entrepreneurs' unconventional mindsets and I want to discuss these mindsets with you today. Now let's get started. First of all, why do I refer to them as counter-conventional? Initially, these 6 mentalities are in opposition to the so-called best practices used by large corporations nowadays. They contradict a lot of what we teach at other business institutions, including London Business School, concerning risk, marketing, strategy, and a lot more. At this point, one could ask, John, what do you mean by mindset? Of course, up here is a mindset, isn't it? It's those things, attitudes, habits, thoughts, and mental inclinations that, when something happens to us, dictate how we will react to it. And those things, as we entrepreneurs refer to them, are opportunities. In order to explain these 6 mindsets to you, I call the first one, yes we can. Now, according to B-School strategy, in a firm, we are expected to stay true to our core competencies. We must identify our strengths. These are what we refer to as core competencies. We must develop, invest in, nurture, and strengthen them. Additionally, if someone says, "Is there anything else you can do that isn't related to that?" What are we meant to say at? We don't do that around here, I apologize. First tip, sure, we can. All right. By ignoring such guidelines, a Brazilian businessman named Arnold Correa created a fantastic company that is now known as Atmo Digital. He had already redesigned his company twice to become a leading supplier of production and event management services. When one of his clients told him, "You know, I have 260 stores scattered all over Brazil, and Brazil is a big country, and I'd like to be able to broadcast training and motivational events in real time to the retailers. So, Arnold, is it possible for us to install TVs in the training rooms of each of my stores and construct a satellite uplink in order for us to ship all of this amazing goods to the stores?" What was it he said? He replied, yes, we could do that. Despite his lack of knowledge about satellite technology, he had never worked outside of São Paulo. Nevertheless, he completed the task. Afterwards, a few years later, a few additional consumers, specifically Walmart, said, "You know, while having all of these TV screens in the store's back room is fantastic, wouldn't it be awesome if we had them on the sales floor as well? Because we could then start running advertisements at ORM so that when the customer enters the detergent aisle, maybe that aisle has an advertisement for Procter & Gamble's detergent What was Arnold's response to that request? Yes, we can do that. Over a number of years, Arnold radically redesigned his company 4 times, starting he said, yes, we can, when a client requested something new that was outside of his core capabilities. Tip 2. First issue. I want to inform you about the second one I call problem first, not product first logic. In large corporations nowadays, the focus is entirely on the products. During my time in the United States, my family and I have been washing our clothing using Tide for many years. We occasionally chuckle at because we can tell a new brand manager has arrived. And at because, well, they modify the product, right? At they remove the blue dots and turn them green. They refer to it as new, improved. Guys, is this an innovation? I'm not really certain. What's in there, Coca-Cola? First came Classic Coke, followed by New Coke. That did not go as planned. Next came Diet Coke, Coke Zero, Vanilla Coke, Cherry Coke, and lots of Cokes. This, in my opinion, is not the main goal of innovation. However, for business owners, tip 3, pay attention to issues. At yours, we concentrate on issues rather than goods. A man by the name of Jonathan Thorne created a technology that accomplished a very beneficial thing. The surgical forceps is the name of the tool you are looking at. It is the instrument used by nearly all surgeons, and all imagine that Addy, the plastic surgeon, is finishing touches on your facelift, and at the tissue adheres to the forceps. Perhaps it won't appear exactly as nice as it was intended to. It may also take longer to complete the work since the plastic surgeon may become a little irritated at. John said, after, I believe I can address that issue, using a novel silver-nickel alloy he had created. As it turned out, the company's growth was slow, with concentrating on plastic surgeons. He then remarked, I wonder if there is another surgical specialty that has an even bigger problem that I could solve. And he found one, neurosurgeons. Additionally, neurosurgeons operate on our brains and spines, respectively. Thus, I pray that you never undergo brain surgery, and I hope I never get it. But if they have to remove a small tumor, I hope the forceps don't cling to other tissues, and I kind of want to save as many brain cells as possible, don't you think? After creating an amazing company, John Thorne sold it to Stryker a few years later. John and his investors are also really thrilled, and Stryker is extremely happy. Why? John didn't think about products since he was more concerned with finding solutions to problems. Think narrow, not broad. Tip 4. I refer to the next one as think narrow, not broad. Like John Thorne, an entrepreneur I will discuss with you, and concentrated on an issue but gave the target market very limited thought. However, the wisdom of large corporations does not favor small target markets. Rather, it favors large target markets, correct? Since you need to make a difference, why would a large corporation tamper with a little matter? Similar to John Thorne, Philip Knight and Bill Bowerman had identified an issue when they created Nike, a firm that we are all familiar with today. But it was a problem that only a very specific target market had. Bill Bowerman was Phil Knight's track coach. Knight was a distance runner who could run a mile in almost 4 minutes, but not quite. Additionally, there was an issue with their shoes because, at the time, running shoes were primarily designed for sprinters. Sprinters also run around the track as part of their training. The track is pleasant and fluid. However, distance runners do not circle tracks. Where do they run at? They run on dirt roads and country trails. They constantly step on sticks and rocks, and they injure their ankles. They run mile after mile they suffer from shin splints. At Knight and Bowerman stated, "We need better shoes," followed by shoes designed specifically for distance runners and shoes for elite distance runners who put in a lot of training. Thus, we will create a better shoe. Better lateral stability and a larger footbed are expected at and respectively. In addition, if it is slightly lighter, a few ounces lighter, times all the steps in running a mile, 2 miles, or marathon, will result in faster race times. It will also have a little more cushioning in it to protect against those shin splints. We are aware of what transpired with Nike, correct? After they acquired the abilities to specifically create shoes for a certain limited target market, and after they discovered how to import those shoes from Asia, and what did they do when they discovered how to persuade players to wear those shoes? John McEnroe in tennis followed by Michael Jordan in basketball and we all know the tale of Nike today. In addition to many other areas, they lead the world in athletic footwear. Tip 5. Ride the float and request the money all right. The next one. asking for the cash and riding the float. Today's large corporations are flush with cash. Even in these difficult times, there is money everywhere. Isn't that right? Merck spent all of this money in 2018, redistributing funds to shareholders via dividends and stock buybacks. Even with all that money, they were only able to find R&D worth $10 billion by. Is there a problem here? This doesn't feel right, in my opinion. However, capital is the lifeblood of the business for entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and the Tesla crew, medical specialties, and in their daily job. However, these surgical forceps have a flaw in that they adhere to human tissue. Musk asked, "What's the plan here?" after joining the Tesla team and that group had a plan, which was to produce a very expensive sports car, make a lot of money from it, use that money to build a car that was a little less expensive, make some money from that one, make some money from that one, and then build a mass market vehicle that more individuals are able to pay. In doing so, we will significantly worsen the emissions issue that is produced by the worldwide motor industry. According to Musk, let's go see if we can sell some cars. This was mentioned around so. They performed a small road performance in California and invited persons with 3 traits to this small road show To start, they were concerned about the environment. Second, they had a lot of money. Thirdly, they thought it may be cool. The next big thing will be parked in their driveway guess what though? Each of the 100 Tesla Roadsters they sold for $100,000 was paid for tonight in cash on the barrelhead. What is the amount? Compute. How much capital do they have to begin producing Roadsters? Prior to the construction of Roadster number 1, there were $10 million in cash in the bank. Tesla has been guided by that idea throughout its whole history. As a result, when the Model 3 was released a few years ago, almost 500,000 customers made $1,000 down payments. Compute that. 500,000 customers, each spending $1,000, equals $500 million in cash and bank accounts, with which to start the engineering, complete the factory fit-out, construct the tooling, and more. Would you not want to use that type of business plan to launch your own venture? Advice 6. Avoid stealing. All right, the next one. I refer to it as beg, borrow. But please don't steal. We teach our students how to evaluate a project's merits in B-School Finance. Therefore, you determine the necessary investment amount and the cash flow moving forward year after year for 5, 10, or any other number of years Well, is that return on that investment sufficient? Is the next question you ask yourself. You proceed with the project if the ROI is sufficient. That is the concept. However, Tristram Mayhew and his wife, Rebecca Mayhew, who established the fantastic company Go Ape, a treetop adventure company, didn't believe that at all. They said, "We want to build a treetop adventure business here in the UK." While on vacation in France, they had seen one that they loved. So where can we get some trees? All right, who in the UK has trees? There are trees in the UK, according to the UK Forestry Commission. There were many of them at all of these Forestry Commission locations at B, and the Forestry Commission was keen to increase the number of visitors well, what better strategy to boost their number of visitors, rather than hosting a Go Ape treetop adventure course on their property Look, if you'll give us a chance to build 5 of these and show you that it works, we'd like an exclusive for the rest of them for 25 years, is what Triss and Bex essentially accomplished at the transaction was completed. In the UK, there are currently over 30 Go Ape adventure venues. How did it happen that there are so many of them in the United States? As the majority of the assets they required were borrowed. They borrowed the parking lots, the trees, the restrooms, and everything else and they only needed to attach their kit to the trees. Really awesome. Tip 7. Never request permission. Permission and entrepreneurs are now like water and oil. You already know that if you're an entrepreneur, don't you? However, in a large organization today, if you want to accomplish something novel, something creative, anything that could be a bit out of the ordinary, you must first get it approved by the lawyers. Since there are numerous rules in place, and you don't want to do something that could put a high-ranking executive in jail, Therefore, it takes a long time and is very difficult to acquire a yes response to doing anything novel and creative. But receiving a no is quite simple. However, do you believe that entrepreneurs like Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp, who established Uber, would have been sensible to request authorization from the San Francisco authorities at and respectively? Can we start a taxi company without any taxis? Perhaps not, isn't it? Because, in your opinion, what would the regulators have answered if they had inquired at? That is not something you will do. That will put the current taxi sector in jeopardy. Therefore, entrepreneurs just go ahead and execute it without asking for permission. Now, I don't support a lot of Uber's actions throughout their trip. Many of them were unethical and others were likely illegal. However, the idea of entrepreneurs simply moving forward is, if the regulations are unclear at or haven't taken into account what can be done today, digitally then you move forward. All right, let me ask you one last question before I go. Questions. The first query: which of these mindsets, perhaps one or two of them already, do you embody today? Second question: can you learn the other ones? Can you learn these? They are, I believe. The third question: could you share these with a coworker who struggles with anything and could benefit from these mindsets? More importantly, today, would one of these mindsets, or perhaps a few of them, assist you overcome the obstacles you're encountering with a task you're facing today at? All right, let's get started. 6 unconventional, rule-breaking mentalities that might be useful to you alter the world.